What is going on, everyone? I'm coming at you with a brand new OP-04 deck profile and gameplay video. Today we're going to be focusing on Queen. This deck is super fun to play and it's super degenerate to play against. It has a ton of different answers for anything your opponent could play, and I really enjoy playing it, so I thought that I would do a profile on it. I've been having a ton of fun on the sim, and this is the list that I think is the best for Queen itself. Starting off with our lower cost cards, we do have 4 Kaya, 2K counter, and it allows you to deep break your hand if you need to do that. 2 of the 1-drop Law, just because you have a lot of awkward like 9 Dawn turns, where you want to like play a 9-drop character and then play, have like 1 cost card to play as well. We're playing 4 of the Trigger Boa. Again, just being able to stack triggers in our life is super nice. We're playing 4 Perona. Again, another reason is we're just trying to stack those triggers on top of our life. 4 Capone, because essentially being able to stop an attack out of life is super good, and because we're playing Perona and Doflamingo, being able to know that that beige is going to be in your life is super impactful, and it really can shut down your opponent on multiple different turns. We're playing 4 Boa. Again, it's a blocker that can give you card advantage if you want to swing with it or if you want to block with it. We're playing 4 Sanji because a blocker with trigger that's a pretty large body is pretty incredible, and you can stack your life pretty easily, so you'll usually be able to put him in your life using your Yamatos or your Queens effect. You also can put him back with Katakuri if you need to. We're playing 4 of the secret rare Katakuri. This card is phenomenal. Not only is it removal for your opponent's board, but it's also ways to put some of your trigger cards back in your life. So for example, your opponent swings at you and you trigger out a Sanji. You can then swing with that Sanji and then you can put it back into your life with the Katakuri, essentially just giving yourself extra life and then getting that blocker back on the board unrested, so you could potentially get a pretty large swing in that way. We're playing 3 of the 9-cost Mihawk because bottom decking is such a very crucial skill for this deck, because it really excels against decks that want to play 1 threat, and being able to still bottom deck anything 7 cost or lower is super good. Yamato is great because she's pretty much blanket recovery, and then also she can remove stuff. Really great card. Usually you want to use her when you're at 1 life, depending on what you've done that game. You're not really going on the aggressive super early with this deck, so generally this can still pop a 5 cost even if you're at 1 life, just depending on who you're playing against and what they've done that game. I'm playing 1 10-cost Kaido just because I found that this deck does kind of struggle against decks that want to run multiple threats, and having a body that can bounce 2 threats in 1 turn is fairly strong, while also giving you a fairly large body that can basically swing over anything, and you don't really have to protect with blockers, and you don't really have to protect with counter. So that's why I'm playing the 1-off Kaido. It's pretty situational, and I think you only use it if you're in a position where this basically keeps you out of lethal, and then the next turn you can build your life back up. And then we're playing 4 3000 Worlds because early game, anything your opponent plays is just going to the bottom of their deck. Extremely strong card, and its trigger is pretty good as well. And then also 4 Gum Gum Red Rock. I think it's the best card in the game as of OP-04's release, because being able to bottom deck any single card is extremely strong and is very powerful against many different leaders and many different play styles. If your opponent goes ahead and they drop a Kaido and then you immediately answer it with a Red Rock and still play a character card, that can be pretty devastating for your opponent, considering that it spent 10 Dawn to do nothing. So it's an extremely strong card, and it's definitely a 4 of in this deck. So let's see how it all plays out. We're gonna hop into some gameplay now. Alright, so hopping into our first game for Queen, we are matched up against Doflamingo. I think another deck that's gotten a bit stronger just due to the amount of support that Blue got in the most recent set, just by nature of Kaido and Gum Gum Red Rock. So I think this is a pretty hard matchup, just because they can play out a lot of different threats. We're going to go ahead and we're going to open up with this Perona that we top deck, thank goodness. We're going to place it on top of our deck here. We see a lot of cards that we want, and we're just trying to figure out the exact way that we want to have these set up in our hand here. So I think we definitely want to have a 3000 Worlds followed by a Red Rock, because that way we can answer any threat that our opponent plays out. So they go ahead and they swing, they play a Jinbei. We can go ahead and we can counter out of that. just because we want to make sure that we get our hand fairly low, and then we answer any threat that they play with our 3,000 worlds. Again, we want to force cards out of our opponent's hand if possible as well, so we're going to swing at them first, and then we're going to just bounce that to the bottom of their deck. And now we're feeling pretty good. You know, if they're using every single turn to just play one threat, then we feel pretty good about it. We're going to see a Gecko Moria play to grab back that Jinbei. Off the top of our life, we're going to see a Katakuri, which makes us feel real good because our next turn is going to be much nicer, where we can use a Katakuri to either bounce something that they play into their life, or we can use it to put something that maybe becomes triggered out of our life and back into our life. It just depends. So at this point, you know, we haven't done any damage to life, but our whole goal is to just get our big bodies out. Once they're big bodies out, then you can start swinging over things. You can start, you know, recovering your life. Basically every turn, once you get an 8 or a 9 drop out, you're able to like add a card from your deck to your life, which is, you know, a ton of card advantage in the grand scheme of things. And with so many ways to bottom deck, your opponent's going to lose out on those cards eventually. So it's going to be really tough for Dofi in this position if they're not playing out multiple threats per turn to cope. So we're going to see the Moria come out, and then we're going to see Perona swing 4. We would have countered out of a 5k swing. Looks like a bit of a misplay here. But at the end of the day, it would have just been a 1k counter from our hand, which we probably would have preferred. So we're going to swing at the Perona with our Queen, and then we're going to bounce the Moria to the top of their life. And again, we've dealt with every single threat that they've played out, and we've stopped them from establishing a board, which Dofi really wants to be able to do. So stopping that board development is pretty crucial. And at this point going forward, we're just going to be able to counter out of most things that they do. So they red rock our Katakuri, which is completely fine, because I think we're going to go ahead and Mihawk here and just bottom deck that Perona. Again, they're not establishing any threats, so when we get to play things out, it's just beneficial to us. We're going to swing 5 here at leader. They are in a position to take it, but we know that it's just a Moria, so we're not too worried, because if they play it out, we know that, let's say they swing at our life when we take it, we can play out a Yamato, and then we can pop whatever they play here this turn and swing over anything they play rested off the leader effect. So we're feeling pretty comfortable with the position that we're in now. We also have a ton of removal in our hand, as well as a way to stack our life once we kind of exhaust what we have in our hand here. So our opponent is on a pretty crucial turn right now. They use the red rock on our Mihawk, which does feel pretty terrible, but it does mean that our opponent's not establishing any bodies. We opt to not counter out of the swing, and we end up netting another Yamato, which is nice, because when you can start chaining these Yamatos, it feels really, really good. And so our opponent plays out a Doflamingo blocker, and because they've played out that Doflamingo blocker, it's going to let us pop it the next turn, and we're going to get a life and a swing in at leader, potentially, you know, taking them down to 4. Anything that we can do to just start ramping up now is super crucial. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to play the Yamato, recover 1, and then we're going to attack leader here for 5, and then we're going to play our Law. And, you know, we're in a position now where they've used 2 of their red rocks, and we still have a massive threat on board. So anything that they do here is pretty inconsequential. So they're going to swing here. We're not gonna block that first swing here. It's gonna be a Mihawk, which is completely okay with us, because again, we can just keep chaining these Yamatos now that we're at 1 life. And then, you know, once we start getting low on hand size, that's when we can start using our Queen effect, which we haven't had a chance to use yet. So they're gonna play a Perona. Again, they're gonna stack the top of their deck here. It's completely fine for them to do so. That's not something that I'm worried about particularly, because again, we're answering every single threat, and that's why Queen's kind of a degenerate deck, is because you have the ability to answer most threats that your opponent plays. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to swing, I think 9 here at the Mihawk. But I think we're trying to think about what we want to do. So again, now we go 9 of 5 here with the Mihawk. I don't want it to stay on board. They're going to use their blocker, which is completely fine. We're going to red rock the Moria, and then we're going to play a Dofi to stack our deck, because we're going to use the Queen effect to recover a life here. And we've put a Sanji on top of our life, so we know that it's going to be something that we can just trigger out if they swing at our life here. And we have a multitude of blockers to protect, you know, our bodies. If they want to use a card to do so, they can. They end up pitching 2 cards from hand to protect their Mihawk here, which I don't know if I agree with, because once your opponent gets down to a position where they have fairly little amount of cards in hand, it's super beneficial for you as a Queen player, because you're always going to be able to out advantage your opponent in the late game, just by nature of your leader effect and by the cards that you're playing. So like, even if like your Yamato is coming down when you have 1 life, if you have like 1 card in hand, that means that you're going to go to 3 life, and then you're going to still have that board presence as well. So we're going to see the Mihawk come down, and it's going to bottom deck our Sanji, unfortunately. So we have a couple of different plays here. So I think it just depends on like what our opponent decides to do, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop the Mihawk with our own Yamato, and we're going to swing 10 at leader. We actually made a bit of a misplay here. I meant to attach the Dawn to my Queen, but I think just glitched out a little bit, because I would have been able to recover another life there and gone to 3. Thankfully, because of my blocker here, they'd have to invest like a bottom deck card, so like they'd have to at least invest 4 Dawn to bounce my blocker, and then they'd have to put 3 Dawn on Perona. So we're gonna see a 5k swing. We're gonna use the beige that we stacked into life to make it so that Mihawk cannot attack this turn, and that really does change the way their turn is played, because next turn it'll allow me just to red rock their Mihawk, as well as recover another life via my Queen effect. So at this point, we're feeling really, really good. We have a ton of options going into our next turn, and so our opponent opts to red rock our Yamato, which is fine, and then they play a Boa. Again, I'm not too upset if they're playing blockers, because it just means that they're not developing threats. So then I swing 9 with Yamato at leader here. They're going to take that. And then I swing 9 again here and gain a life, just because I want to put myself in a position where I'm not going to be threatened with lethal, and I want to be able to threaten back lethal against my opponent next turn. So they're basically in a position where they have to deal with my blocker. I have 2k counter in hand right now, and so they have to at least swing 11 at my Yamato to kill it after bouncing my blocker, which it's pretty tough to do unless you have like the exact right combination of cards. We see the Doflamingo come out just so they can stack their deck here a little bit. The 2 blockers are a little bit annoying, but we definitely have a ton of cards in our deck that we can use to get around blockers. Things like 3000 Worlds are really good. We're going to see a swing here for 11 at my Yamato, but there's no bounce, so we're just going to use the Doflamingo to block there. And then this turn we have a ton of options. We're just going to drop 2 blockers, swing 9 at the Moria here. That's completely fine. It's going to go down. And then we're going to swing 6 at life, grab another life card from our Queen effect, and then we're just going to slot Dawn underneath the Boa here. And so Boa's feeling pretty good. She's looking real good here. You know, we're just going to draw us another card. It's going to keep advantaging people. We're just going to keep going on this advantage train. We're going to grab another blocker out of our life here, which means that we can stack next turn. Kaido's going to come down, and it's going to bounce the Boa, which is completely fine, honestly, because now we're in a position where we can kind of pressure our opponent a bit more. So we're going to play a 3000 Worlds to bounce their Boa. We're going to drop a Boa as well, just to kind of put another blocker out. We're going to swing 9 at life here, either force out their Dofi blocker, or they take their life here. And then we're going to swing at leader, gain a life, and then again slot that Dawn under the Boa again, just because it's just such a good card when you can draw additional cards into your hand. And as you've seen it, like, you know, we just draw a card there. We have 3k encounter in our hand right now. We still have a blocker. They're going to play the Moria to grab a 1-drop Law from their trash, it looks like, and they're going to replay that, and then on top of that another one. So it's it's basically blocker city right now. They end up swinging at my life here, which we end up taking, and then we have another Yamato. So we have a couple of different options here right now of what we can do. I think ideally we just play the Soga King. We swing at life here. Obviously they lose the blocker. We bounce the other blocker, and we're gonna pitch the Yamato at this point. We don't really need her And then we're just going to swing 8 at leader here. Again, force out all of the cards from their hand. We still have a blocker. We have a fair bit of counter in hand. So we're not super duper worried. And at this point, like if they have a 4th red rock in their hand, it is what it is. We're going to see a 9k swing here, which will block. And that basically just puts us outside of lethal. Now that they've done that, like we can't lose. And so, yeah, they could swing at our Yamato here, but it doesn't really matter. So that's going to be game. All right, so we have a matchup against the terror of OP-04, and that is Red Purple Monkey D. Luffy. We're going to open up with the Perona, and we're just going to look at our top of our deck, and it looks horrendous. We don't need that many categories in this matchup. We're looking for a lot of bottom decking if we possibly can, which we see here, which is great. We're going to drop a Boa, and then we're going to pass turn. Again, being 6k on all turns is really, really strong. They're going to play a Lead Performer Disaster, which is a card that I haven't seen before, but it ramps a Dawn, and then it draws a card, so it's not terrible. We're going to get 3,000 worlds off of our life, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to play a Boa, and then we're going to swing 6 at Luffy here, just try and force a card from their hand. At this point, they've already kind of ramped up, and they are at 7 Dawn already, so they're going to drop a 7-cost Kid, and now their Luffy's going to be swinging at 7k this turn. So we're going to go ahead and block that. And then at this point, we're just going to Red Rock their Kid, and then we can't swing 7 at them, unfortunately, but we'll swing 6 anyways, see if they misplay. And for our next turn, at least we have a Katakuri to answer like whatever they decide to play. So if they want to play it on their 7-cost Kid, we can Katakuri it, which they're going to opt to do. They're going to play that 7-cost Kid here, buff their leader again. And so we just want to keep answering these kids if possible. They're going to opt to swing 9 here at 5. We do get a beige. Unfortunately, it's not like a super great trigger, but it's not the worst case because, again, we have our Katakuri to just, you know, bounce this kid. We could also like think about playing blockers here, but I think we go for the Katakuri because it's just better to get that out of the field. And then we put on our Boa so that we can draw a card when she blocks for us. And having this 8-cost character just means that, you know, we're feeling pretty good. Again, our opponent could play another kid. They're going to swing 7 at us, which we're going to counter out of with our beiges here. Get low on hand size so that we can start using our leader effect, which is going to be really important in this matchup. There's a lot of big threats in this purple-red Luffy deck that we have to be very careful of. So they're going to drop a 5-cost Queen, and you know, it's a good card. Lets them draw some more and pitch some dead cards from their hand, like this Lead Performer Disaster card. They're going to use their leader effect to ramp, which is completely fine. They have 5 Dawn active. I think being able to ramp every turn is such an underrated ability, because like if you're at 8 Dawn or higher and you can play like 2 5-costs, just is really, really strong. So we're gonna go ahead and just think about what we want to do here. I think 3,000 Worldings the Queen is probably the best play. And then we're gonna play we're gonna swing first here, 8 at 6. They're probably just gonna take it to get that kid back. Yeah. And then I think we're thinking about like just dropping the Sanji and then swinging 7 at Luffy here, which they're going to 2k out of. Again, their hand is pretty huge. They have like 8 cards in hand with 3 life still, because again, they're playing like 1 threat per turn and they're not being forced to protect their characters at all. They're going to play the kid plus 1,000 to their leader here. Thankfully that we have 2 blockers we can protect. They're going to go for our life here. I think we have to kind of start blocking at this point. They have the Missile Sunday here, which we could block. Again, we just really need to start getting rid of most of these threats, if we can. Next turn, we'll be able to play another Katakuri. They're going to swing all Sunday 8 at life here, which we are going to block again. We just want to make sure that we're keeping these things out. So I think the best course of action here is to probably just Perona to start, see what our life's looking like, and then we could probably Katakuri their kid back into their life. But Katakuri is going to go to the bottom of life for the kid because I don't want that there. And then I think we swing 7 at the Missile Sunday. We probably could have Perona'd and swung 6 at it, but I think we want to guarantee that it's going to die this turn, because They have like a blast breath up, and swinging 7 and then 8 basically means that they're going to have to at least give us two to three cards from their hand, depending on how they want to play it. So I think that was the thought process, is like, I can deal with 1 threat a turn, I can recover 1 life a turn, but I can't deal with 2 bodies on board. So they're going to blast breath, which it's unfortunate, but we're going to swing 8 at 5, and then that's going to get rid of the Missile Sunday, which is, you know, pretty beneficial for us. We wore down 2 cards, a card from our opponent's hand. We got rid of their board, and we still have 2 pretty big threats. We're going to see a Shanks come down, which we weren't expecting to see. It's a pretty strong card. We are going to be lucky and get a base trigger out of life so that their leader cannot attack, which feels really good. So they're going to pass turn back to us, and at which point we're going to use a Perona to start placing stuff in our life here. Obviously we want to put our Sanji at the very top, because we're going to want to use his effect there to get triggered out of our life. So it's always nice to have that. Just trying to do the math here. I think I want to be able to play like a swing at leader here, gaining a life, and then I want to be able to play both my blockers as well and get rid of one of these Peronas, just to kind of guarantee that I'm going to be completely safe. I don't really care about the Shanks this turn, mostly just because it's a card that's like, it's on the board. I'll be able to red rock it eventually, but it's not a priority to deal with because I'm kind of behind right now when it comes to life and cards in hand. Without like being like too far behind, I want to keep this the way that it is, I think, but I think I want to move the Yamato. Yeah, so I want to be like Yamato, red rock, Yamato, just because like that way I can draw the Yamato, and then I have a tool. We're gonna see a 10 cost Luffy come down, so again, like just another massive threat that our opponent's gotten. And they can use that to KO things. Like, I'll block this swing, but they're gonna KO a Katakuri with it, which it's pretty rough. It's a pretty strong skill, so it's something that we kind of have to deal with, because if it just keeps destroying our blockers every turn, we're always going to be in a rough spot. I have to keep this Katakuri on board because it's going to be my only answer to recovering at this point. I need it to recover cards into my life. So opponent's going to go ahead and swing. We're going to trash the Soyo King to grab that Sanji, and then at this point we can drop our Yamato to recover one, and then we can use Queen Effect here to recover another one, and then at this point we don't have to block. We can save our blocker potentially. I don't know, now that I have Yamato out, I could swing, but I don't think I really want to. I just want to, you know, risk giving them more cards to hand. I know that the top card of my life was a red rock, so that when I take it, I can then bounce this Luffy afterwards. They're going to drop a 4-cost Law just to set up a blocker, it looks like. Swinging 6F5, grabbing another Yamato, which is going to be pretty huge for me. Again, like, just being able to recover life every single turn is super impactful. Luffy is going to potentially swing at me here. They're going to play an X-Ray to make me pitch the Yamato, which feels pretty bad because I would have liked to have had that. But you can't always have what you need, unfortunately. They're going to ramp back with the leader effect, and then they're going to swing at leader here. We're going to bounce that Law with the red rock. Again, just punishing our opponent for playing those things first. And then we're going to not use the 3000 Worlds effect. Again, we'll be able to recover a life here, but we have to start dealing with our opponent's board at this point. They only have 2 cards in hand, so we should be able to start swinging over some things as well as recovering life. As long as we get rid of that Luffy, then we're feeling pretty good. And our opponent using a 2k counter from hand just to get us to pitch that Yamato feels even better. So we'll see what they have. We do get a red rock here though, which I think is probably the best case scenario. Basically guarantees that this Luffy goes bye-bye. So we're going to bottom deck it, and then at this point we can probably we could probably swing over Shanks if we wanted to. We're going to gain a life though. Again, it's just so good to be able to recover every single turn, and on the fact that we have our blocker. So now they counter out of that swing. I can put it on Yamato. I can swing 12 at Shanks. They cannot protect the Shanks. So I think countering out there was a bit of a mistake. But now we're swinging 8 at 6 here, and so our opponent's down to 2 life. They have a lead performer disaster, which draws them another card, which, I mean, it's a decent trigger. Dead card in hand for sure, so you definitely want ways to get that out of your hand if you can. But now I'm in a pretty great position here. Feeling fantastic. We got blocker, we got, 1 life, so we'll block the first swing here. And then, our opponent could probably drop. There's so many different things they could drop at this point. We could see like a Luffy come down. We could see like any rush character could potentially end the game for me here, because all I have in hand is a 3000 worlds, and when you're playing against red, that's always a possibility. So we've got to make sure that we're mindful of that, and we're playing very carefully around that. But I think that, as long as we survive this turn, we're basically in a very strong position to win. So they're going to load up their Luffy here because it doesn't look like they have any rush characters, and they're going to just try and clear my Yamato, which is, it's going to be pretty good for me. If they're focusing on swinging at my bodies, then that's pretty great, because I can then just start recovering life and just win this battle of attrition that they're trying to start here. If Yamato goes down, that's completely fine. Even if Katakura goes down, like, as long as I can keep one of them on the field, I can still use my leader effect. And so while using leader effect, I'm going to go to 2 life as well. And then I'll be out of range of lethal because I have a 3000 worlds that I can use to just bounce this X-Drake back to my opponent's hand. So he ends up swinging a life instead, which I think is a bit of a mistake. Just because, again, I'm going to be able to recover next turn. So I 3000 worlds the X-Drake, and then it's gone. We swing 8 at leader here, we gain a life, and then we could probably swing 9, 10, and then blocker, just to make sure that our opponent has nothing left in hand. I mean, if they take this life, it's potentially just lethal for me if I go 10, 10, just depending on what they have in their life. But again, I don't want to get too aggressive because I want to make sure that I have at least 1 Dawn left for this law, in the event that, they have another rush character. Sitting at 1 life against red, again, is just super risky, especially if they have like unblockable characters. So they are going to use their 1 Dawn to Blast Breath. At that point, I know that there's no point in going for lethal here. So we're going to swing Katakuri. They're going to take that. And then I think we're going to swing 11, just to make sure that they don't have any life left for the next turn, and they're in a really scary position. They've already used 2 Blast Breaths, so I mean, they might have another one, but who knows. And then we'll play that Law to kind of finish off our turn. They have the Kid in hand, which is fine. They can go up to 7k, but I'm not too worried now. We're feeling pretty good, and this deck is, it's interesting. They have the Tony Chopper, so there is a blocker coming out, which I didn't expect to see from this list. Because there's such an aggro list that plays so many big threats, you don't really expect to see like a 1-drop blocker come in. But we're going to see that alongside this Luffy. So Luffy's going to be at 7k, and then Chopper's going to be there protecting. And then I still have 2 Dawn active right now. But them playing the Chopper into Kid basically just tells me that they're kind of conceding. Because they're going to go ahead and they're going to swing 9. I'm just going to block that. There's no reason that you would ever do that. It's better to leave the Dawn up, I think. But at this point, it's like, okay, well, I have a Yamato, so I can just pop this blocker easily. And then I have a bunch of swings. Like, I have 9-9. But I'm going to swing 6 at 7 just to gain the life, just to guarantee that I don't lose if he has enough counter in hand. And then it's going to be 8 at 7. And then it's going to be 9 at 7. And hopefully that's enough to win me the game. Because, it's not. But he's got no cards in hand. It's basically a free win at that point. But yeah, on to the next game. All right, hopping into the third game, we are going to start off with a Trafalgar Law matching up into Vivi. Vivi's a deck that I don't know where its place is going to be, but it's not super great, unfortunately. We're going to see a Nami come down. We're going to see a card revealed. I think that Vivi just kind of falls too far behind. A lot of removal right now, and Vivi really needs to protect her bodies in order to be relevant, because you can't swing with leader.
So if you're unable to do that, then you're feeling pretty bad. We're going to pass back to us. We're going to drop a Dofi here just to kind of... we're going to swing first, honestly, and then we're going to drop a Dofi. I think Vivi really requires a lot of card advantage, and I don't know if, like, maybe people have been building Vivi wrong, and that's why she's not strong, but I think she really excels with a ton of card advantage, and being able to play things like 3,000 Worlds and Red Rock, I think are super great, and there's a lot of good aggressive red cards. We're going to go for a Dofi here, and our list seems pretty good. We got a good amount of cards here. We already have the Soga King. We wanted to double Yamato. We want to be able to chain those because those are going to be really beneficial for us in the late game. A lot of our big guys have no counter. That's why we're playing Soga King, because he does have counter. We need that. They're going to go ahead and they're going to drop a Nico Robin here. And that could be a threatening card just because it can do a lot, but it's not terrible. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to opt to maybe deal with it. It doesn't look like we have the tools to do so, though. So I think we're just going to do for a big swing. Maybe. It's hard to say. We'll play a Boa, and then we'll go for a 7k swing at leader. Just trying to force cards out of our opponent's hand if we can. If not, it's whatever. They're going to use a guard point here, and that's okay. Yeah, we'll probably lose one of our blockers here to the Nico Robin, but it's completely fine. Again, just giving them way too many targets to pop is kind of ideal. They're going to go ahead and drop a Marco. That's fine. It's going to pop our Trafalgar Law. And they're probably still going to pop our Boa with their Nico Robin, which, again, is still completely fine. As long as we can get to a position where we're good. But they're going to actually opt to not swing with their Nico Robin, which is fine. But that means that I'm probably just going to bounce it. I opt to bounce the Marco instead. I end up pitching 3,000 Worlds and another Soga King. And then we'll end up swinging 5 at leader here. The reason why I want to bounce the Marco is because, like, I don't care if they replay it. Just getting their characters off the board is fine with me, and then I'm able to establish, like, a bigger threat here. And now if they want to replay the Marco, it's kind of, like, putting them a bit behind. Yeah, they pop my Boa here, but they don't get the attack from the Marco, and, again, Vivi really has to keep bodies on board to get those benefits. They're going to drop a Chaka, which I'm not sure if I think Chaka's a very good card, but it's interesting, that's for sure. We're going to go ahead and swing 6 at 5 here with our Soga King. Again, see if we can force cards out of hand here. Yeah, if they minus a bunch of, counter power on our guys, the Chaka's fine, but it is what it is. We're also going to swing here for 5 at Vivi here. And I think we're just going to opt to play a Yamato. I'm not going to get the recovery, but I am going to get the deletion effect. Which is going to be nice. I'm going to be able to pop basically anything on this guy's board here. So I'm going to opt to pop the Chaka. I don't want that static removal on board. I feel like it's going to be more relevant than Robin because of the fact that it's just a bigger body. Robin's fine to leave up there. They're going to replay another Chaka, which is fine. Activate their leader effect, draw another card. And, like, their board is pretty wide here, but I'm feeling like I'm still in a pretty good position here. They don't opt to... They're going to opt to use a Dawn effect. They're going to give their leader minus 3,000, I believe. They're going to give minus 3,000 to our Soga King, and then they're going to be able to pop it with the Robin. So we're going to take that first swing here. It's going to be a Sanji, though, and we're going to just shoot our Red Rock to the trash there. I don't think we'll need it this game. Yeah, it's good, but... they're going to swing here, and they're going to pop the Soga King. Again, completely fine. It's not a problem for me. We're going to get a Boa to come down, which is, again, super nice. We're basically in position here to take this last life and then be able to play like Yamato, but we're gonna opt to not take it. And then our opponent could swing with the Nami here, and then we'll take this one, and then wow, we get another trigger. Wow, that's crazy. But we don't end up playing it. I think the reason that we don't do that is because, like, we don't need to. We could have and then had, like, a really wide board, but we definitely don't want to just, like, kill our Sanjis or kill our blockers for no reason. We end up swinging here. It's hard to play, like, this kind of turn because, like, we'll be at 5. So, like, we're not going to get both effects off. The Yamato can't, like, get deletion here. So, it's a bit awkward of a turn. I'm trying to think, like, do we want to go leader into life or into a character. We swing on the Nami, we play a Yamato, we pop the Robin, we recover one, and now we're in like a fantastic spot. Like we have 3 blockers on board, 2 massive threats, we still have 2 life, and while we have 3 cards in hand, our opponent only has 3 life, and they have to be able to like pressure our threats at some point, but without things like strong removal, they're not going to be able to do that. So like that's where like something like Red Rock would be super beneficial. It's just like gonna come down and clear one of my threats, but right now like they can't swing over anything because of all the blockers that I have, and I'm gonna be able to consistently continue to just restock on these blockers, restock on my life. I'm playing like so many blockers in this list that it's gonna be so hard for them, and I don't mind that. I think being ultra defensive is kind of like a playstyle that suits me personally. So if you think that you would benefit from a more aggressive playstyle, you know, you could slot in things like the 7-cost Big Mom. It's a great card, and it opens up your turns going first a little bit. We're gonna see another Nico Robin come down. I don't know if it's a bit too slow at this point, but it is gonna get rush from the Vivi effect. So it does kind of like make up for a bit of that like slowness that Robin generally has. Definitely better with Vivi, I think, at this point in the game than she would be for any other leader. And so they're going to swing 5 at us, and they're going to pop the Boa Hancock here. I'm going to opt to just kind of let that go through. It is a beige. No trigger, though. I don't really want to trigger it at this point. And then we're going to see an Igaram come down, which is going to be a really bad searcher in my opinion. Like I think that the searcher is like really not that great because it gives your leader minus 5,000 power, and it has to rest itself, and it still costs 2 Dawn. So like you basically have to spend like the same resources as a Bonnie, but like it basically means that like your leader, it can only ever be used in like Vivi. So I don't know if it's a very good card or not. It's pretty situational in my opinion. We are going to set it up so that we can recover a Sanji into our life, which is going to be so nice. We love having Sanjis there. We're going to swing 6 at the Robin, see if they want to protect it. I don't know why they'd want to protect it. In my opinion, it's a pretty bad decision considering like all the threats that we have on board right now. But, you know, there's things like, you know, Love Beam that you can play. There is like a Radical Beam is still at 1 of. There's so many options that people have to protect their characters. And so they're going to go and counter out with Otama. And it looks like they'll pitch another card as well to protect it. But that's fine with me. I'm just going to keep swinging at it. And this doesn't seem like that's like the right card that you should be protecting. Because now like I can swing at life here with my Yamato. And I think I'm going to swing Sanji at the Igaram here. I don't want any more searches coming down, and knowing they already pitched it, it feels like this is the right play, because I can just play Katakuri, kill my Perona, and then bounce my Sanji right back into my life again. And then I have back-to-back Sanji triggers in life, which I feel like is going to be really hard for my opponent to deal with. On top of the massive amount of like characters that I have on board, like I have so much, but they're gonna have to guard point, protect the Igaram, which again, I don't know if that's the right play. But we actually end up bouncing the Marco to the bottom of their life here. So they really only have one character that's gonna be able to deal with our board. Nothing's really gonna die on our board at this point. We can take swings to life. We can protect our characters. They're gonna drop an Izo. I don't know if there's anything that they can really grab that's going to be threatening. They end up grabbing the Jozu, so just more counter power in hand. But this is going to be a death by attrition game. I can already see that. It's going to be a slow, steady beatdown, where I can just start swinging away at their leader at this point. Like I'll have like 2 9Ks and an 8K swing, so it doesn't matter how much counter power and they have. They're going to have to start playing blockers at some point. They play a Marco, and it doesn't do anything, but they're going to use their Vivi effect to at least give it rush and draw a card. Again, I don't know how good that is, but I think they are guessing that they want to clear my Sanji maybe. But they swing on my life, which is like fine. We're going to block that. I don't really care. Again, I still have a Sanji in my life. They could activate their Igaram effect if they wanted to. But they're going to pass with 1 non-active here. And so like I have a ton of options here. I think it's just probably best to just kind of like swing away at their leader here. Just 9 at 5 is just like pretty hard to get out of. It's gonna be at least like 2 cards from hand if they want to use an event counter, or it's gonna be 3 cards if they want to counter out. So just whittling them down like with these 3 attacks is gonna be a huge turn for me, and while maintaining this blocker on the board, it's going to be even harder for them. So like I could swing 8 as well. I could swing like a 9 again if I wanted to. I don't really think I'm in a position to ever go for lethal, and there's no reason for me to really need to go for lethal here. Again, it's all about like whittling my opponent down at this point, forcing cards out of their hand, forcing them to use their event cards on this turn, so they don't really have any options for the next turn. They're going to opt to counter out of that swing, which again, that's completely fine. We're going to play a Sanji here, and then this is just so that we can do a couple of big swings. We're going to gain a life again off of our queen effect, and then I could have done it either way. I could have swung 9 with the Yamato and then swung 11 with the queen and then played the Sanji, but I think like it doesn't really matter that much. I know that this last, like, unless that like was like a jet piss or something like that, but I would have lost the Sanji regardless to something like that, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so they're gonna go ahead and play a Kaido on their 10 Dawn turn here, and that kind of seems like to me they've given up, because like, yeah, they can bounce Katakuri, but that's basically it. They bounce Sanji instead, and then they just disconnect, and that's gonna be the game. Thanks so much everyone for tuning in, and I really hope that you guys did enjoy my Queen deck profile. Until next time, Monty out.